Joining us now to talk more about the southern border, John Sandweg, former acting director of ICE. John, really appreciate you being here. And let's jump right in. Let's start with what we just heard from former Kingpin Jay Flores there. He says there's far too much focus on drug seizures when in reality, that's a line item that's accounted for and expected in the business of the cartel. He says he was able to send $2 billion in U.S. cash back down in semi-tractor trailers and cars. It went straight into the cartel's pocket. What more needs to be done about this?
Well, Natasha, attacking those currency flows is obviously a key to kind of neutralizing the cartels. Part of the challenge is we put so much attention on people and drugs coming into our country that we just don't have a lot of resources focused on outbound. So during my time at DHS, we would do periodic outbound inspections, seizing significant amounts of cash, but you just don't have the resources to do it 24/7. So a lot of times that, typically drugs obviously go north, cash goes south, and that southbound flow goes unfettered. But look, at the end of the day, part of what we need to address in this country is our insatiable appetite for drugs. Even if we can shut down these drug cartels, there's just so much money to be made, as we heard, in the drug industry that new threats will arise and more people will take advantage of it. So if there was some way in this country that we could get a handle on this insatiable appetite and this massive amount of cash that we're spending every year on drug use, unless and until we can solve that, we're never going to fully stop the flow of drugs into the United States.
Okay, I appreciate that. Let's get your take on this major headline today. 29 Mexican drug cartel leaders extradited to the U.S. This includes Rafael Caro Quintero. That's the man who allegedly ordered the abduction, the torture, the murder of DEA agent Kiki Camarena back in 1985. Can you break down for us how significant this is in the fight against the cartels and in U.S.-Mexico relations?
Yeah, I think it is very significant. I mean, this is a significant number of, especially in that case, of very highly wanted cartel members. I think one thing we have to remember, though, is that Mexico has been a good partner of the United States for a long time. Chapo Guzman, of course, was arrested in Mexico and was brought to the United States in cooperation with the Mexican government. But we're at a very interesting intersection right now in the relationship between the United States and Mexico, where the Trump administration, through the use of tariffs, through the threats, as we heard about, of use of military force in Mexico, is putting Mexico under even greater pressure and kind of testing the limits of their sovereignty. This obviously there was a sign that, again, that the Sheinbaum administration wants to cooperate with the United States and is willing to lean forward in a way we haven't seen Mexico do in the past. But Natasha, I don't want people to think that Mexico has been a bad partner. We could not have had any of the success we've had over the last 7 months at the border, where we've seen these really steeply declining numbers, without the help of Mexico, whether that's enforcing, stopping migrants crossing the southern border in coming north to the United States, or whether that's their willingness to take people back, even if they're not Mexican nationals.
Well, let's talk about that. I mean, we hear Jorge Ventura covering the report that Hegseth says military action is on the table if Mexico fails to meet the Trump administration's demands on the border. Do you think direct strikes in Mexico are the right move?
Look, I think that direct strikes against some of the cartels have arisen to be where they are almost autonomous little armies themselves, where they act with autonomy in certain sections of Mexico, and the Mexican government is incapable of neutralizing them. I think that military strikes could potentially be, in a very limited and a very targeted manner, could potentially be part of a solution, but it has to be done in coordination with Mexico. That is a sovereign nation that takes great pride in its sovereignty. That is a nation that is critical to all of our border efforts. And if we were to do some unilateral military actions, Mexico could easily cut off its cooperation with us in the border, and we'd face massive challenges. Natasha, if Mexico refused to take back Mexican migrants alone, the administration would be back to catch and release, immediately. We just could not possibly handle the flow of people coming across the border, even in the reduced numbers we see today, without Mexican cooperation. So to the extent that military strikes are part of the answer, they just have to be done in coordination and in cooperation with the Mexican government with their full consent.
All right, John Sandweg, appreciate the perspective, appreciate the time. Thank you.
My pleasure.
In just about 36 minutes, stay tuned for a NewsNation special report, Crisis on the Border on the Front Lines. It's hosted by senior national correspondent Brian Enton and NewsNation border correspondent Ali Bradley. NewsNation's Jorge Ventura also joining them live. Thanks for watching. Go to joinnn.com to find NewsNation on your screen. And don't forget to click the red subscribe button below to get more of NewsNation's fact-driven, unbiased coverage.